Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy. This is episode number 191. The fastest formula to female arousal. Ooh, yeah. So I want to share an experience that happened to me just this last week because it really caught me by surprise and really grabbed my attention. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much value, so much insight here. And let's dive into the mechanics of what happened, what was going right with female arousal, and how it took a detour real fast, and how we got it back on track even faster than before. Okay, so to start off, I just want to say that I was experiencing a pretty typical day in the life of Nick and Shelly Anderson and kids and family and doing all the things. We were busy. We had kid things to do. We had errands to run, cooking, cleaning, all the things. Now, in the mix of it all, even though we were all very busy, my husband and I were able to kind of check in with each other every now and then for a moment, those magical moments. And we kind of had some fun in those few minutes that we had together, just laughing about things, sharing things that were kind of funny throughout the day, things that had gone right or wrong. And we spent a little bit of that time flirting with one another. Ooh, do we remember about flirting? Flirting can be so fun, right? And so we were able to flirt with each other multiple times just throughout this day in these little short spurts. And I remember kind of thinking maybe around 7 o'clock, like, ooh, this is a fun day, right? Like I've just loved so many things about this, even though it has been very busy and not everything's gone right. But I remember thinking also like, maybe we'll get busy tonight, right? Maybe we'll be intimate. And I was open to the idea of it. Even though it had been a long day and a busy day, I was open to the idea. My mind was open. And I think that is very, very important to notice. Now, at the end of the day, as we were winding things down and coming to the conclusion of it, it was late. It wasn't 8:15, right? It was late. And by the time I actually got ready for bed and got into bed, Nick had made it there before I did. And so he was nice and comfortable and laying in the bed. Now, he wasn't doing anything specific. He was simply laying there. He wasn't laying there with a mean face, a mean look on his face. He wasn't laying there with all kinds of unspoken expectations of how the night was supposed to play out. He didn't line up sex toys, right? He wasn't saying anything negative. He wasn't doing anything negative. He was simply laying. So then I got in bed and I was like, okay, I'm going to settle in. And I was still of the mindset of, let's see where this goes. It would be really nice to be intimate. We've had such a fun day together. We've been flirting. We got a lot of things done. I feel accomplished. I feel close. And so I just laid in bed and was just kind of thinking about that, wondering how the evening would play out when it comes to intimacy. And then nothing happened for about 1 or 2 minutes. And then my mind had a thought, and it turned out that it wasn't a positive thought. It was negative. And it went something like this. What? He wants me to do all the work? Right? All the work when it comes to getting busy, right? Business time in the bedroom. And I viewed his laying there as meaning that he was just going to lay there because he had a long day. And now it was my job, my turn, my duty to initiate the sex and pay all the attention to him and make sure that his needs were being met, right? He didn't say any of those things. He didn't imply any of those things. He didn't motion to any of those things. My mind did that. My thoughts did all of that. And so, if you can imagine, I was instantly out of the mood. All day, I had been looking forward to it and being like, yes, this is good. I can be in the mood. And in an instant, like lightning speed, I was out of the mood. And I actually felt mad because of this thought that I was having, like, oh, he wants me to do all the work. And I actually felt sad because I was like, no, why is this happening? We've had such a good day. I want to be close to him. This is like, it felt so natural to want to be intimate with him after having these wonderful connections with him throughout the day. And so I felt sad. And I felt like that the intimacy would have been the cherry on top. It would have been like the perfect ending to that day. Now, I don't always think that. In fact, I usually don't think things like that. Like sex would be the perfect ending to this day. I think that was the first time I actually had that thought. So I was really sad when I kind of got derailed and I did it myself. It was self-sabotage. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Wives, does this ring a bell? Like, hey, sometimes things are going well with our husband, and then we just think one thought and we're just off the tracks so fast. And maybe for you husbands listening, you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? Things were going so well. I thought things were lined up. I thought we were connected. I thought I was helping and listening and being there and being involved. And right, you think you're doing all the things and you think things are going to go well that night. And then all of a sudden it changes and you don't even know why. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Well, 14 hours of really good connections were totally undone in one thought. That's crazy information. And this actually happens a lot. This is common. And this is especially true for women because we do not have an arousal system that is the same as our husbands. Our husbands, most husbands have spontaneous arousal. Women do not. So it's much more easy for them to be turned on and ready to go, where with women, we're like, hey, there's a few things that need to line up. And so when all of a sudden we are like ready to go and it gets undone, we're like, oh no, we got to go back to the beginning, right? And so I'm wondering if we are experiencing something like this, and it's like quite common, do we know what those prerequisites are for female arousal? Do women know that for themselves? Like, hey, I know what they are. I know what the specifics are. And husbands, do you know these things about your wife? Because it is so valuable and way more effective if both spouses know this. Now, things can still be effective if one spouse knows it. There's no doubt. It's usually that the process is a little bit longer. It's not speedy. But if we want like fast and effective action and results, then it is in the couple's best interest for the husband and the wife to know about the woman's arousal system. So we need to know. We need to know what the female arousal system is. We need to know the details of it, which means we need to know what the arousal system is for the women. The wives need to know it for themselves, and the husbands need to know it also for themselves and for their wife, right? But it's for both. It's for the couple. So we need to know these, and the answers Let me tell you, on the internet, if you try to search this stuff up, you are going to get very confusing and conflicting answers. And this is why there remains so much confusion about it. You can read one article that says, oh, females are experiencing this. And then the very next article, you're going to read that the females experience the exact opposite. This is such a tragedy for marriages because even if we're trying to understand things better, we're still getting very confusing information and it's contradicting, right? Back and forth, back and forth. And so we're like, what do? We still don't know which thing is right. And we're stuck in the same spot. So we need to know what's called the intimacy trek because this includes both the female arousal system and the male arousal system. Both are included. Yes, this is what we need. The intimacy trek is an all-inclusive system for sex. It doesn't just focus on the husband's arousal and it doesn't just focus on the females. It is inclusive of both. So each spouse will enjoy the intimate process and experience so much more fully if each spouse knows the intimacy trek. So we need to know it. If you don't know what the intimacy trek is, you don't know how many steps there are, you don't know the name of the steps, you don't know the order, please get in contact with me. Get on my website, right? We need to make sure that you know this thing. So what ended up happening, right? We need to talk about what ended up happening that night where all day things had been amazing and I was looking forward to being intimate. And then one thought totally derailed me. What happened? What did I do? Well, after about 2 minutes of just nothing happening and my negative thought kind of taking over, and then I was filled with sadness and probably more than anything, anger, I knew what the intimacy trek was. And so I decided to challenge myself, start from the beginning, Shelley, get back on the intimacy trek. You know exactly what to do. And I was like, yes, I do. Boom. I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to take care of this. I know how to do this for myself. I know how to fix this for myself. I do not require my husband to do things different. And I'm not going to control him or manipulate him or guilt trip or force him to do anything. I got this. That's an awesome feeling. It's very empowering. It's awesome to know what you can do for yourself when you're not feeling in the mood. So I started on the intimacy trek. I was going through the steps and I challenged that negative thought that I was having that derailed me, right? If he wants me to do all the work. And I said, I'm going to challenge that thought. Brain, I see what you're doing. I see why you delivered that thought to me, but I actually don't like this thought. It's not helping me in this situation at all. Bye-bye. That thought needs to go packing. And it did. I sent it on its way. And then I just looked at him and I was like, actually, he just seems like he's ready. He's ready for the night. He's ready for the intimacy. He's open to it. He's available for me, right? He's there to please me, give me pleasure, make sure that I'm sexually satisfied. He is there. And I remember like just starting to think about it different and starting to challenge my own thoughts. And the one I landed on was, I think I'm just going to advocate for my arousal right now, like my arousal system, right? He looks like he's ready to go, and that's great. I'm not yet, so I'm going to advocate for my arousal system and say, hey, let's get back on the intimacy trek, starting with step 1. So that was kind of like the good positive thought I landed on. Now, what is very interesting is while I was in the process of doing my thought work, Nick was also in the process of doing thought work. I didn't know this. We're not mind readers. And all of a sudden, he did something different. He beat me to the punch. I love it. And I actually did love it because all of a sudden he turned, he like switched his position. So he was facing me and he just like kind of barreled into me and just wrapped his arms around me, just squeezed me and gave me this big hug. And while he was doing that, like while he was in the process of doing that, I was like, yes, he knows. He knows my arousal style, and he is going through the steps. That's the thought that my brain went to after I was already starting on my own process. And those new thoughts came in when I saw my husband taking a new direction. And I was like, yes, I know the trek. I'm doing the work. He knows the intimacy trek. He's doing the work. And now I am totally turned on. This happened in a matter of like 3 to 4 seconds. That's amazing. I went from sad and like angry and thinking, no way, no how, we're not going to have sex. I'm not in the mood anymore to, I am so turned on right now. I can't even stand it. 4 seconds. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, if this had happened years and years ago, long before I knew about coaching or thought work or the intimacy trek, I would not have had the skills to turn things around so quickly. And in fact, that night would have just gone with like no intimacy, right? Because I would have just stayed in my sadness and anger and continued to not be in the mood. And maybe that would have lasted for the next 5 days. Because that is kind of how it goes when we don't know how to have that intervention with ourselves. But now that I do know these things, and now that he knows these things, the turnaround is so much faster. Think about it. The turnaround was 4 seconds instead of like 4 days. What an amazing difference. 4 seconds to turn around. Now, we both have these skills. Within 4 seconds, I went through the first steps on the intimacy trek, and my desire for sex shot through the roof. There's no doubt. And guess who knew it? I knew it, and Nick knew it. And I ended up initiating the rest of our sexual experience. I was like, this is what I want. Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's get sexy. And it was amazing. I felt amazing about it. I think Nick felt amazing about it too. Now, when you don't know the intimacy trick, everything takes longer. And sometimes things don't happen at all, right? Just like with my past experience, it would have lasted days before I was able to maybe come back and turn things around. And maybe it would have taken even longer than 4 days. But when you know it, a wife can advocate for her own arousal system to be activated, and husbands can also activate it because he will understand what that means. So what is the fastest formula for female arousal? Are you guys ready? It's know what the intimacy trek is. Know the number of steps, the names of the steps, and the orders and the order of the steps. That's step one to this formula. Number two, women advocate that the intimacy trek be followed. Husbands advocate that the intimacy trek be followed. That's important. And if you don't advocate for it, then just activate it once you know it, because you can do that. You can totally do that. Husbands and wives can both activate the intimacy trek. Number three, follow every step in the intimacy trek in order. Do not skip steps. And number four, if you find that your brain took you off course, reroute it. Get right back on, start from step one of the intimacy trek. This is the fastest formula for female arousal. If you don't know what the intimacy track is, please get on my website, shelly.andersoncoaching.com, take a course, sign up for one-on-one coaching, sign up for the membership, sign up for a free discovery session so we can see if coaching is right for you or what product is right for you. You need to know the intimacy track. Otherwise, things will take way longer. They're way more frustrating and very unsatisfying. And why would we want to be involved in an intimate experience that are all those negative things? Like, let's turn it around. Let's have this be a fun, enjoyable, and connecting experience. We all deserve that. So this week, make sure you take one step to learn more about the intimacy track so you can start to activate it in your marriage. Because remember, the more you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you will join me again next week.